All right, so I want to do a little walkthrough for an assignment that is part of the modules 2 and 3 of the Introduction to Networks course. It is a file done in Packet Tracer, and I'll show you where you can download that. You open up WebEx Teams. You should see my screen. On WebEx Teams, if you go to ITN Modules 1 through 7 team, and then click on Content, file is right here. It's called Design a Small Network in Packet Tracer modules 2 and 3. You just download that and open it. And if we open it up here, there we go. So on this Packet Tracer, there is a router which is already set up and kind of somewhat pre-configured. The interface is configured anyway. And the instructions are really just to create a single network with one router which is already on the workspace, one switch, and then 2 to 4 end devices. Now, this Packet Tracer assignment is almost as much about becoming familiar with the basics of using Packet Tracer as it is to actually create the network itself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import the elements of this network into the workspace. So it calls for a switch. And if you click on Network Devices, and then underneath that you can see those network device categories that you can select. Routers and switches, that's probably 95% of what we use. There's also hubs and other things. So let's select switches, and we'll select one of these switches. We'll use 2960. Just kind of select it and click into the workspace, and that'll import that in. And it is, the instructions also say to put in 2 to 4 end devices. So if we go back down here, you can click on end devices. And there's a lot of things you can do in Packet Tracer, like a lot of Internet of Things devices that you can import, but 99% of the time, 99% plus percent of the time, we're picking something out of basic end devices. So let's pick a PC, and we'll put a printer on there. And that meets our minimum requirements. You could put a couple more on there if you wanted to, but let's just stick with 2 for this example. So now we've got our devices in. Eventually we'll need to connect them up, but right now the first thing that this Packet Tracer assignment is having us do is configuring the switch with the following configuration information. So let's click on Switch, click on CLI. If you don't see a CLI tab here, go up to Options, Preferences, and check the Hide tab, because sometimes if this box here gets selected, there'll be no CLI tab on your configuration window. So make sure that that's not selected. So go back to CLI. We'll go into Privileged Exec mode, which is Enable. And we'll go into Global Configuration mode, which is Configure Terminal. And the first thing it wants us to do is assign a host name of SW0. And that is host name SW0. And notice the prompt changes. The user exec password of Cisco, that's the console line basically. So line console 0. This was done in, this is also done in Packet Tracers. I believe it's 255 and 291. But that's also done as well. And we'll assign a password of Cisco. Okay. And it also wants us to define a privileged exec password of class. Let's enable password class. And it says it wants no clear text passwords. That is service password-encryption. Create a banner message. So that's banner MOTD for message of the day. We'll just say keep out. And it wants us to create a management VLAN with IP address that I can't see. Okay, and this is done in module 274. If you wanted to look back in the book, that's where you'd find how to do this. There's also part of a packet tracer in that same section. So interface VLAN 1. We'll assign it the IP address specified, which is 192.168.1.254. Now over here, it gives us the subnet of that network. So we have to define that here. It's 255.255.255.0, which means that we're using the full class C IP space of this. So it's 192.168.1.1 through .254. So it's 254 host IPs in that. You'll learn about that in module 11. And now let's enable it by typing no shutdown. And we have finished configuring this switch per these parameters. So it says connect switch port 24 to router interface gigabit 00. So now you need to go down to the media section or your connections right here. And we're looking for a copper straight through, which is this solid black one. It says it down at the bottom down here when you hover it. Fast forward in time. We'll see it's green, so it's seeing a connection. And configure end devices with IP addresses in the specified network. So you kind of need to know that we're assigning IP addresses for this that fit into this network. It even gives us the default gateway address, which is this interface on the router that we just connected to, which is 192.168.1.1. So let's go into the PC. Go to desktop IP configuration. And we're going to assign an IP address. Let's assign the default gateway really quick. 192.168.1.1. IP address has to be in that same network. We'll do .1.10. And that's the full Class C subnet. And now to the printer. Let's see, on printer, we can just go to the configuration. Okay, here we go. Go to fast Ethernet interface on the printer. Assign an IP address. We'll use 192.168.1.20. Subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Now, if we go back to settings, we can define the gateway here. And we don't need a DNS server in this case. So now we need to connect our end devices to the switch. And that's a copper straight through cable. We'll just choose one of these ports. Shouldn't matter which port we choose. Let's make sure we can ping. And we have success. Should be able to ping the gateway. That was successful. So at this point, the basic criteria for this assignment is met right here. Did have a bonus to set up the router with the this configuration as well. So I'll show you how to do that as well. The commands are actually the same. You don't learn about this officially until you reach module 10, but most of the commands on a router are the same as a switch. It's just that the router does a few things differently. Like in a switch, you do not need to set an IP address to the switch ports, but in a router, you do need to assign an IP address to each interface. So that's one thing. But as far as the setting up a host name and all that, really that's the same commands. So we'll go into privileged exec mode, global configuration mode. Host name is gateway. Password for the console is Cisco. Privileged exec mode password is class. No clear text password, so that's password, service. Password encryption. And it wants us to create a banner message as well. So we'll do that. Banner message of the day. And if we log out completely, we'll see that, oh, we actually missed one thing. Glad I did that. Go back into configuration mode. You'll see that I forgot to tell it to log in on the console. So go to line console 0, log in. That forces a login prompt. Now, if we go back to exit all the way back, it's actually, oh, there we go. There we go. Had to completely exit out. So now we get a login prompt when we open up the router. Password is Cisco, and then if we go into global configuration mode, privileged exec mode, it will ask for a password again, and that's password is class. And that's all there is to that. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or leave a comment on WebEx Teams. And have a great day.